Shalom family. For centuries, the biggest argument surrounding the scriptures has been about identity. Who are the real people of Yashar'Al? The world has been deeply conditioned by Western media, religious paintings, and Hollywood movies to picture a very specific, non-melanated demographic, but this isn't a new strategy. If you look at the historical records in the Apocrypha, 1 Maccabees chapter 3 verse 48 explicitly states that the heathen sought to paint the likeness of their own images in the books of the law. They altered the visual data as a result. When modern readers encounter descriptions like Song of Solomon, where it says, "I am blackened calmly," or Lamentations, where it says, "Their faces are blacker than coal," mainstream theologians quickly dismiss it as mere poetry or metaphor. The arguments go back and forth what seems like forever. I'm not ashamed to admit this, but anybody who knows me knows that I'm a huge sci-fi geek. I love anything sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, the Avengers series, Marvel superheroes, you name it. If it has anything to do with out of this world thinking, I've watched it. So, as a result, when I finally read the scriptures properly for the first time in my entire life, starting from the very beginning, I began to apply this exact way of thinking to the accounts I was reading. Now, I could have been just like everyone else, looking at it as some dusty, ancient, historical book without applying this lens. But the Ruach HaKodesh was actively pushing me and activating this mindset, telling me, "Daughter, your feelings are right. The way you see this is right." That divine nudge led me to investigate further under the guidance of the Ruach HaKodesh. So, I stopped looking at the scriptures through the lens of religious mysticism and started looking at them through the lens of advanced technology, biophysics, and energetic engineering. When you view these encounters as high-tech interactions with extreme energy, the debate over identity ends. You realize that a specific, highly melanated biological template wasn't just a cultural preference. It was a strict operational requirement.
Melanin is a sponge for light. Melanin is actually really interesting, and it's going to be one of the major pillars in my lab that we're going to be focusing on, because not only is it this pigment that absorbs all wavelengths of light from radio frequencies, aka non-native EMFs, all the way up through gamma radiation. It is a major protective mechanism against radiation in general. If we're thinking about, protecting our organs and tissues from the effects of non-native EMFs or radon or whatever other kind of gamma radiation we might be exposed to, building your melanin, building your solar callus is a great way to buffer your body against these exposures. But in addition to that, melanin is also a potent heavy metal chelator, so it can pull heavy metals out of the bloodstream and protect your tissues against damage from these heavy metals as well. Like I mentioned, melanin is likely also to play a role in the bioenergetics of the system. So if somebody is born and naturally has more melanin in their skin, it really should be seen as a blessing and as a superpower.
Pigment, right?
Right.
It's so unbelievable, George. They're using it in computer chips now because it has an ability to transduce electrical energy. Can you imagine this? It has this incredible ability to hold on to and transduce and manipulate electrons, electronic energy, and photons, photonic energy. It's a fascinating molecule.
Let's do a forensic audit on Mount Sinai in Exodus 19. When Moses ascended that mountain to communicate with Yahuwah, he wasn't just walking into a quiet cloud. The text describes a thick cloud, intense lightning, thunder, and a consuming fire. This was a high voltage, high frequency electromagnetic field environment. At that altitude, cosmic radiation and intense UV electromagnetic energy are heavily amplified. How does a human body survive that kind of exposure without immediate cellular damage or radiation sickness? Biology reveals that eumelanin and neuromelanin function as an organic, amorphous semiconductors. Melanin possesses a unique property called threshold free photon absorption. It can absorb high energy radiation across the entire electromagnetic spectrum and safely dissipate 99.9% of that energy as harmless heat. It acts like a biological surge protector. A biological template lacking high concentrations of this protective, conductive pigment matrix would experience severe tissue necrosis and radiation burns under that level of atmospheric energy. Marsha, Moses, survived because his physical template was literally built to ground and filter that immense power. Just look at what happened when Marsha, Moses, came down from the mountain in Exodus chapter 34. The text says the skin of his face radiated light so intensely that the people were terrified to look at him, and he had to wear a veil. In modern biophysics, this is known as a persistent photoconductivity and delayed luminescence. Melanin is a remarkably stable free radical. When it's exposed to an incredibly high frequency divine energy field, what the scriptures call the glory, the electrons within the melanin structure are pumped into a higher orbital state. It literally stores the energy like a biological battery. When you remove the energy source, the molecules slowly return to their resting state by releasing that stored energy as physical photons. So his face was literally emitting light because his melanin was fully charged. This biological requirement carries over to the tabernacle instruments. As we established before, the Ark of the Covenant, the gold-plated wood, and the specific copper layouts formed a massive resonant capacitor system. It generated immense static and spiritual voltage. The priest operating inside that space wasn't just doing a religious ritual, he was acting as the literal grounding wire for a closed electrical circuit. Neuromelanin heavily coats the human brainstem, central nervous system, and auditory pathways. Because it increases electrical conductivity, it allows the nervous system to handle and ground massive surges of energy without the heart going into lethal shock. Trying to operate the high-tech equipment of the tabernacle without a heavy concentration of melanin in your biology is like trying to run a high voltage electricity through a cheap plastic wire instead of a thick copper cable. The system will just melt. When you apply a logical engineering lens to the scriptures, the historical identity arguments fade away. You realize that the original children of Yashar'Al were a highly melanated civilization because the entire prophetic and technological system of Yahuwah required that specific physical hardware to function. The powers that be changed the images to hide the truth and the true knowledge. They turned an advanced biological manual into a passive Europeanized historical myth, so you wouldn't realize the power sitting inside your own cells, inside you, Yashar'Al. In our next few reels, we're going to dive straight into a truth that completely reshapes how we read ancient history and the scriptures themselves. The fact that there are multiple creation stories recorded right within the scriptures, alongside the reality of multiple deities hidden under the umbrella title Elohim or Elohim. We are going to look into how the writings of other ancient civilizations and books outside of the 66 and the Apocrypha corroborate this reality, as well as examining raw archaeological evidence that backs this up. Clean the temple, recognize the hardware, and lock back into the original frequency of Yahuwah. Until next time, family, stay Baruch.